I'm Jess Harris with CE Floyd, and in today's episode of Industry Tidbits, we'll be talking about top talent and how you can hire the best people at your firm. Let's build on this.
Welcome to Industry Tidbits with our host, Jess Harris, your go-to resource for today, tomorrow, and the future.
Welcome to today's episode. Today I have with me Pete Doucette, Director of Operations at CE Floyd. Hi, Pete. Thanks for being here today.
Hey, Jess. Thanks for having me. Looking forward to being part of the show today.
Great. Our second guest is Brian Brogioli, President at Wolf Staffing Solutions. Wolf Staffing Solutions specializes in permanent placement of construction professionals at contractors throughout New England. Brian spent the early part of his career in law enforcement and fraud investigations before spending 11 years at a large Massachusetts-based general contractor. Hi, Brian. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, hi, Jess. Thanks for having me.
About yourself? Yeah, thanks. Can you tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Yeah, so, I started in construction in 2003. I was a safety director, coming from law enforcement and fraud investigations. Somehow I moved into an HR role. I guess I'm not quite sure how it happened, but it did. Over the years, I realized that I had an affinity for recruiting. So, in 2013, I started Wolf Staffing Solutions. I work by myself, and, my goal is to not try to force the square peg into the round hole, but, find great people for great companies.
And Brian, what do you recommend in terms of when an offer is made? How do you recommend closing the deal? Like in terms of everything, the big picture?
I think when we're closing the deal, we need to know what the candidate's motivations are. What are they? Are they looking for, is it money? Is it growth? Is it culture? Is it people? Is it loyalty? The amount of loyalty that companies show their employees, that's out in the market. The market knows what your company is about. And, we need to make sure the message out there is a good message and not a bad message. And, I think from when the offer is made, when you're interviewing the person, you need to make sure that it doesn't have to be super fast, but understand you're in a race, especially nowadays where there's a shortage of people. When you get a good resume, if you wait a week, the person might be gone. You got to have somebody looking at them, evaluating them quickly, bringing them in for an interview, getting the right people in the room to make sure that you're evaluating them properly. And then making them an offer as quickly as you're capable of. You got to check references in there. And I would suggest that the companies check them. And if you have a recruiting firm, check the references, and I am a recruiting firm. And I know this, we all have our motivations, right? My motivation, and to be transparent, is I want to make sure that person gets a job. And if you have the recruiting firm check the references, they may not ask the questions that are important to you. So make sure you get to ask the question. So that would be my suggestion there. But when you make the offer, you should, make sure the pay is in line with where it should be. You make sure they understand your benefits, make sure the person understands your culture, and that they, walk them around the office, bring them to a job site, sell them. Once you want them, you're a salesperson. You need to sell them on your company and make sure that they accept.
Yeah. And I agree with you. And one of the things we find is you really have to be authentic about who you are, because not everybody's the right fit. So you have to just stay true to your culture, your company, your work-life balance, and be honest with them. And even if they're an A player and they're not going to fit with your culture, or maybe they don't like the job types, or it's not in the city, you can't force it. So it's got to be, you've got to fit together like a puzzle. And, once you know that that's there, then like you said, you've got to move and you got to make it happen quickly.
Yeah, that's the truth right there. And I think asking somebody when they come in for an interview is, what motivates you to come here? What are you looking for? And have them tell you, I'm looking for money. I'm looking for a car allowance. I'm looking to live in Bedford.
Right.
whatever their motivation is. If they say, I want to move to, northern Maine, they're probably wrong for you.
Yeah,
And
you're right.
we
That's one
don't
of the
ask.
first questions that I always ask is why C. Floyd? Because that's kind of the first thing you want to know. Why us? And then you build on that.
Right.
Why
Then you
you?
build on
And
that.
it goes back and forth.
What are you seeing just in terms of that for remote work? Work-life balance is obviously a huge concern when people are making this decision to work at a firm. Obviously, a superintendent isn't going to be working remotely, but in terms of other positions at a construction firm, are you seeing that due to COVID and everything that's kind of happened since then, that companies are offering more remote work for work-life balance, or do you think that people are requiring that when they're looking for a job now?
I mean, absolutely. I think pre-COVID, it's interesting to see that very few offered remote work, and I think that I think companies questioned whether when people were sitting at their house, were they actually going to work, or were they going to go, clean the house and play with the dog? So I think there was always that question, and I think when COVID hit and everyone was forced home, companies realized, geez, these people are working. I mean, the type of people that are in this business, they don't want to loaf, they want to work. So I think that there was a little bit of a trust barrier that got broken through with COVID. And I think now that things are getting back to the new normal, I guess, we're seeing more companies offering, at least some remote work, a day a week or more. But they're more flexible on times. It'll be interesting when winter comes to see, we get a snowstorm, there's no reason to not have everyone work from home now because there's the technical capabilities to do so.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's definitely become a much more flexible business, and it's we've learned to trust our people, and that's one of the things that you're trying to evaluate when you're looking for that talent. And if they're in the office, how long is it going to take you to trust them to do their job? And hopefully, the track record and the references and some of the homework you do will give you that feel. The other, on the flip side to it, as part of your question, Jess, is this is a business about being in a team environment. So there's definitely got to be a balance between being around your team and coaching and mentoring, and that goes into the onboarding and, that next phase after you bring those people on. But it's really important to make sure that face-to-face is there with the clients on the jobs, but you got to be flexible because you're going to, you'll lose people if they don't see that you have a flexible work environment.
Right. And at the same time, I think with all of the remote stuff, the hiring process in the last year and a half went remote, more, it was 100% remote for a long time. And I think it hurt companies, personally. I think that, how do you, when you look at, they talk 6 degrees of separation with Kevin Bacon, right? I mean, in this industry in Boston, it's 2 degrees. Everyone's connected very, very closely to one another. And, is the grass greener on the other side? It's probably not. It's just a different shade of green. It's, it's similar type people building similar type projects. And, when you go to a bid list, there's a dozen companies on that list that are bidding on the same project. And whether you build it or your competitor builds it, at the end of the day, the job will look the same, right? I mean, it's going to come out the same. So the difference with these people is it's your culture, it's your systems, are they part of the family? Excuse me. And I think that it's important to make sure that people understand that that's what you're about. And when you're on Zoom exclusively, it's very difficult to show somebody your culture. And you meet 3 people online and you think, well, they seem pretty nice, but I wonder what the office looks like. In the last year, I had quite a few people get jobs that the first time they stepped foot in the office was on their first day of work. And to me, that's a challenge, especially today with a shortage of people. I think that it's time to wine and dine people. It's time to bring them in, show them what you're about, take them to lunch, bring them to a job site, which bring them to a job site before you even hire them, because you're going to get a better read on them anyway than in the interview room.
Well, Brian, thank you so much. We really appreciate your time. Your insight was great, and I think we actually have more time to talk next time about actually retaining this top talent. So we'll have to have you back. So thank you for joining us today. Like, share, and follow us for more amazing industry tidbits. And Brian, if people want to reach out to you, what is the best way to contact you?
It's just Brogioli at wolfstaffing.com.
Awesome.
Or you can just, my website is wolfstaffing.com as well.
Great. So you'll be a great resource if people have further questions. And as I mentioned, we can have another session on retaining top talent. So thank you again, and join us next time. Let's build on this.